Hey everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Aspiratillo.ai. With me, I've got Jon, and Jon is the CEO of Nimble. And we're going to talk about, we're not going to talk about CRM or anything like that. We're actually going to talk about Jon's experiences with rock concerts and pop concerts, and the fact that he's collected all the tickets the whole time that he's ever been going to concerts since he was a little boy. So, Jon, remind people where they can get hold of you.
So first off, Tim, thanks for the opportunity to join you for a conversation. I consider you a dear friend, and I love that we connect beyond our business relationships. If you want to connect with me, Google me. Find a channel that feels good for you. I'm out there on a number of them. And while you're at it, Google yourself, because that's how people are going to get a hold of you and make sure you're showing up. And if you want to show up better, maybe build a Wikipedia page for yourself. An idea.
So, Jon, you've been to 554 concerts. And you started off with Howlin Wolf in 1972. Basically, you got the ticket and you put it in a shoebox, and then the next concert you went to, you put it in the shoebox, and then the shoebox was not big enough, so you put. So basically, what was the specific moment, perhaps, when you said, "Okay, I need to actually start sorting these out and actually build something with them"?
Well, first off, let me just correct you and share that I didn't keep every single ticket, because
Okay.
that's a little bit nutty. I kept most of them, many of them, and I'm not sure why I kept them, but it was my souvenir. And I think human beings forget things, and having some sort of document helps us to remember. And I don't think I put it in a shoebox. I think I probably just stuffed it in a drawer, because that's the way human beings are. We stuff. And one day I found them all, like, just sort of sitting there. I think it was maybe after GoldMine. I sold GoldMine. I had some time on my hands to ponder life. And I started to go through them, and I'd forgotten many of them, and including who I might have gone to the shows with. And I worried that if more time went by, I would forget more, not just the shows, but more importantly, the people that I intended the shows with, because it's those connections that you have, those shared moments and memories, that really create the bonds of your human relationships, which I think are probably the most important relationships in your life, certainly in mine. And so I started to archive them, first with a thing called Concert Archives. And Concert Archives is a website that allows you to essentially put
Shall I share your screen, Jon?
Yeah, why don't you? So this is Concert Archives, and so this is sort of what started me down the road of archiving my concerts. And so I started to put in my concerts into here, and I found it kind of okay. It's kind of nice. I could go into here and I could have the show, and it would tell me what the set list was, and I could upload a photo or whatever. And that was great. And it would remind me periodically and say, "Hey, Jon, 54 years ago, you saw Yes and Donovan at the Forum," right? And it's kind of like the way Facebook kind of brings up memories of posts that you do, and you kind of go, "Oh yeah, I had I went to that record store with Tim after dinner in London
did.
that time," and I think it's those moments that really is what life's all about. And so I dug this, and then I also because most of those sets are coming from Setlist FM.
Yeah.
I also created an account there, and they also have the ability to have shows. And so I started to put in, my various shows there. By the way, I saw Peter Gabriel at the Roxy back in the day. One of the better shows I saw. Roxy is an intimate little club in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. And so I did that. But the problem with these sites was I would talk to my friends and so let's say I get this notification. I say, oh yeah, you saw this show 50 years ago. And I post that on Facebook and I share it with my friends and say, hey, who else was there? Because like I shared, we forget these things. And some friends would say, yeah, I was there. Or do you remember this show? And then all of a sudden they remind me of a show that I saw with somebody else that's not on my list because I didn't keep all my tickets. So what I wanted to do was to really dig in and fill the gaps and look at more information about the shows and share those with my friends so that they could then say, yeah, Jon, I was at that show with you as well. And so let's go pick a decade. The 70s were good. So these are some of the 70s shows that I went to. And if you look at my my concerts, I'm a bit eclectic. Like I don't just go to pop and rock. I go to progressive rock, classical, jazz, and the like. And so so I built this to enable my friends to then, for a particular show, say, I was there, or for them to upload pictures or videos or whatever. And it would be my site as opposed to some site that might come and go, and I could do whatever I wanted with the site. And really the site was more about connecting and reconnecting with people I love, who I've shared experiences that were so influential to who I am today. That basically, so I built this website, and that's sort of the story behind why I did it, and where it started.
And in terms of I think is it the first one you went to was Howlin Wolf in 1972?
Yes, it was actually Howlin Wolf, Alice Cooper, and Commander Cody at the Palladium Theater in Hollywood.
And you were how old?
I think I was 12. Yeah, I had 5 older brothers, and my older brother Pat would take me to shows. I think one of the if I go back in time, one of the more memorable shows that I went to back in those early days was this show called California Jam. And it was at the Ontario Motor Speedway.
Oh, you can get there's a bootleg and a official release of that.
Yeah. So California Jam was a show that was Deep Purple, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Black Sabbath, Black Oak, Arkansas, Seals and Crofts, the Eagles, Rare Earth, Earth, Wind and Fire, and I think there might have been some more there, but it was 250,000 people. I think I was 14 years old, and there's no way in hell that I would have been able to go to a show like that unless my brother took me to it. And I think that the Eagles had Jackson Browne stepping in for one of their guys who was having a baby. And so it was my first time seeing Jackson Browne. And I think maybe Bonnie Raitt got on stage, and it was Black Sabbath at its prime and Deep Purple at its prime and ELP. Like it was just great. And so, so I can go in and I can put pictures, and what I do is I go grab the old, so if you go through the website, there's media. And so I put in videos I take of shows, and I put in bootlegs that I find of the shows that are out there. I don't know if you ever heard of Max. I think his name is Mike Millard. You ever heard of Mike? Mike was a guy who would go into all these shows and he
Is he the
would,
guy in the
his
wheelchair?
friend,
Yeah.
yes, they would push him into a wheelchair. He had a Nakamichi twig that
Under his
under
chair.
the wheelchair. Yeah, and he had he would bring in a big bag and he'd have his underwear over the mics and stuff so they wouldn't like look at it. And he would put the mics on his hat and he'd wear this cap. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of his cassettes, but they were Mike Mallard cassettes. He would draw on them, and like he would do this artwork, and the artwork would be related to like the band's fonts and things. It was really cool. But anyways, so I could sort of dress up. I could collect all the different memories that are part of this show to enhance my ability to recollect it and to share that experience with others who may not have been able to go to the show, or to reconnect with friends who did go to the show, or people I don't even know who happen to go to the show, that I could, talk about those moments. Because the older we get, the more stuff we forget.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah. I think that the thing about the human memory is that we quite often remember experiences, don't we? We quite often remember how we feel.
Yes.
And how something makes you feel. What have you done with the ticket stubs? Have you still got them, or have you uploaded them onto the site?
Yeah, I have them, and they're all sort of in a bag, and I intend to, maybe one day put it into like a frame box. Like, did you know that there's a name for you could turn the website off for a second. Did you know that there is a name for people who collect matchbooks?
No.
Yeah, so a matchbook collector, you know what a matchbook is, right? You go into restaurants and they have matches that are yeah. So a matchbook collector, there's actually a name for it. It's called a philomenist. And so I don't want to get weird about the tickets, but I think it'd be good just to display them, right? Because if you were to look at my walls back over here, there's a photograph of Robert Plant and Jimmy Page signed from like one of their shows. And so I have rock memorabilia. I go to shows and I'll buy posters, and I have those posters up in my room or my house and stuff. And it's just a way for us to sort of remember, right? It's like our little souvenirs in life to have around us.
So I mean, it's like the question is a bit like saying, who's your favorite child? But is there a favorite gig that you went to? Is there something that really stood out? Because I know you went to see Led Zeppelin in the day, didn't you?
I did. And, it's probably one of the more disappointing shows that I went to, because by the time I saw Led Zeppelin in 76 and 8, they had sort of evolved from the 1968 Denmark shows that you might have seen on video, where they're just raw and pure, right? And I think Led Zeppelin 1 and 2 and maybe even 3 and 4 were just mind-boggling great. But by the time I saw them, they got a little bit bloated, and Jimmy was a little bit high, and they were not as tight as I would have liked them to be. But interestingly enough, they were on the same label as Bad Company, which was the Swan Song label. And Bad Company was a derivation of Mott the Hoople, which is a band that I used to love. Mick Rouse was, I think, the bassist and guitar player. Yeah, and they basically became Bad Company with Paul Rogers of Free. And so Bad Company was really big when I saw them, and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant got on stage and sang some songs with them. And they were great because they were in somebody's house show. And so they were really, really good. So in answer to your question, do I have a favorite baby? The shows that I'm happy that I got to see, like Bob Marley, back in the 78 or whatever it was. And, being able to see Genesis in its earliest forms, basically the Seconds Outs tour, then there are three and being able to see early Peter Gabriel and all that. And I took my boys to see the Eagles at the Forum in 2018, and Vince Gill had just joined them, and you know, it was the Eagles are like putting a record on. It's like it's always going to sound just like the Eagles, and that's good and bad, you know. But I think some of my earliest Pink Floyd shows, like seeing Animals and Wish You Were Here, you know, I just like, how do you pick one? I do think that sound systems and staging have gotten much better. So I saw The Wall in 82 or 4, whenever.
London,
yeah. And I saw Paul Rogers do The Wall in, I think, 2012, when he kind of toured with the full set and everything. The sound was loud, but it didn't hurt your ears. Have you been to a show where your ears hurt and it's just hurting you to be there? Yeah. The sound was so perfectly clear and the stage was so great. And I brought my boys because my boys grew up playing Guitar Hero game, and they basically fell in love with all my music. So now they love all my music and they go to shows with me. So I've taken them to, you know, like some of their favorites, AC/DC, Van Halen, The Wall with Rogers. And now they've been to umpteen like Dead shows with me. And so my father taught me music. He used to load 78s in jukeboxes in the 30s. And so I grew up with his swing, blues, jazz collection. And I think that's where I learned to love jam bands and to be different than just the normal pop sound. And I've then done that in turn for my children. And I think that they'll do it for their children as well. And I think passing along traditions, family traditions and traditions that you share with friends is critical. And, you know, what's more basic than sharing a show with somebody you love? Maybe a dinner, right? Breaking bread with somebody is the basic commonality. I call it the 5 F's of life: family, friend, food, fun, and fellowship. These are the things, the softer side of life that people bond across, that create the memory and connections, the intimacy and trust that, you know, Tim, if you and I didn't talk for 5 years and you and I talked for 5 minutes, we'd be fast friends again, because most of the fuel of a rocket is spent getting into orbit. Most of the fuel of a car is spent getting to 60, but very little is to keep it going. And so it's my aim, especially as we get overconnected and overcommunicated in this world that we live in today, to find the needles in the haystacks, the Tim Hughes of my relationships out there that I could stay connected with. And so this Concert Archive site is just another means of me trying to stay connected to people that matter.
And do you think is this also some sort of autobiography or legacy for you? I mean, you clearly have other legacies, but is this, because you're so interested in music, is this part of that legacy and autobiography?
You know, I used to teach salespeople when they go in somebody's office to look at their walls, to look at the books they read, the degree of the school they went to, the knickknacks they collect. All these things are what people display that enable you to find areas of commonality, to share those commonalities, to build the intimacy and trust. And that's why I make myself available for people to see the real me, as opposed to Jon Ferrara founded CRM, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not me. That's a part of me. The me is, this is the real me. The me is if you go on a walk in the mountains with me, if you go into my turntable and we listen to a record together. And so, yes, this is a means of me letting people see who I am, what I love, and to find areas of commonalities to connect with me.
Jon, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your ticket collection and what you've done with it and what it means to you. I really appreciate it. So if people wanted to find out more information, where can they get more information?
Well, They could just go to jonferrara.com, Jon. That's my website. And they could find my concert page there. It's a sub page of that. I'm not going to bore you with the words. I think it's concert archives or concert-archives, but just go to Jon Ferrara, Ferrara.com, and you'll see my site. And then if you want to connect with me, Google me and connect with me on whatever channel feels good for you. My email is jon@nimble.com, really easy. And I'd love to hear your story about what did I share that moved you? There was a guy named Gary V I was hanging out with at South by Southwest, and I was telling him a story about the couple of years after I sold GoldMine and the journey that I went through with my health. And what I discovered is that we're on this planet in the brief period of time that we're here to grow our souls. And the best way to grow our souls is by helping other people grow theirs. And he turned around to me and he said, chills, Jon, chills. And this is what life's about, is sharing those moments that move others and ideally blow a little wind in their sails and help them grow. So yeah, connect with me wherever you want and tell me your story.
Jon, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us today. I really appreciate it.